everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1999 Project. And this week, the hits, or the misses rather, keep on coming as we close out the month of April. And as we cross over into the month of May next week, things begin to pick up. But we got some stuff to talk about first, so let's get into it. Starting off with a rather famous movie from director Alexander Payne. It is Election.
Underestimate an overachiever.
Looks like you could use a cupcake.
Election.
Election was directed by Alexander Payne, the man who would go on to direct movies like Sideways and The Holdovers, and the movie starred Reese Witherspoon, Matthew Broderick, and Chris Klein, among others. It's based on the book of the same name, and it tells the story of a girl named Tracy Flick, played by Reese Witherspoon. She is your classic overachiever. There's a shot in the movie where when you open up the yearbook, you see her like just all over the thing. She runs all the clubs, she is a part of student government, and she is gunning for the student body president. However, or well, student body presidency. However, there is one thing standing in her way, and she doesn't know it, in the form of Mr. McAllister, played by Matthew Broderick. He does not like Tracy Flick. He is a beloved teacher at George Washington Carver High School, where Tracy Flick goes to. However, he's not a big fan of hers, and so he silently backs a challenger of hers in the form of Paul Metzler, played by Chris Klein, and air quotes hilarity ensues. If you have followed this series for any length of time, you will know that I hate high school movies now because of this series. I think I've covered like 5 in this project alone, and with the exception of 10 Things I Hate About You, they have all been mediocre at best and just cringe at worst. But I had high hopes for Election, because Election is a rather famous movie. Directed and written by Alexander Payne, we all know who he is. Stars Reese Witherspoon, she would go on to do great things. Matthew Broderick had done great things and would go on to do good things after this. So, good cast, good director, and I think this movie's overrated as hell. Let me clarify, this movie's not bad. I want to get that point across. I'm not saying that this movie is horrible and anyone who likes it is just out of their mind. I get why people would like it. It's just not a movie that is for me personally. The best part of the movie, Reese Witherspoon is really good as Tracy Flick. Matthew Broderick is really good as Mr. McAllister. The best part of the movie is really the perspectives of Flick, McAllister, and Metzler's sister. The movie does a good job of balancing the multiple perspectives of all the players involved in this really well, and doing this thing where there is no real true good guy, maybe except for Paul Metzler. He is a bit of an innocent victim in all of this. But Tracy Flick comes across as the good girl, but if you dig deep inside, you understand quickly that she's got problems of her own. And Mr. McAllister puts up a facade of, I am a teacher and I love my job. And he does to a certain extent, but he just has a growing resentment for Tracy Flick that just grows to consume his personal and his professional life. And it is realized in ways that are both good and bad. I guess this is as good a place as any to parlay into some of the stuff that has not aged particularly well. Without going too deep into spoilers, because we'd be here all day, there is a plot line in the movie where Tracy Flick has relations with a teacher. You'll know it when you see it. But it is painted in the movie as her and this teacher having talks with each other, because she never grew up with a father and saw this teacher as a father figure. And there is a scene where she literally walks into his bedroom. I'll let you put 2 and 2 together from there. And I just got exasperated at that point. I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Because why must every high school movie from this era have just the creepiness involved in all of this? Whether it's the high schoolers that don't look like high schoolers, to bullying to just whatever Jawbreaker was supposed to be. Like, why can't these high schoolers just be normal people? Like, I was just I the entire at points in this movie I was just like, give me eighth grade, please. Bo Burnham, save this movie. There's also a subplot where it is heavily implied that Paul's sister might be a part of the LGBT community, and it's I don't know. I'm just saying it was 99, so it was a different time, but it just could have been handled better, I suppose. There are parts in this movie where I look at it and I think of like seeing an old cigarette ad from the 50s where doctors say that like 2 out of 3 doctors recommend Camel cigarettes. I just look at it and go, what were you thinking? But there are enough good things. There's enough good comedy here, and the acting is solid for the most part, that I'm going to give this a good rating. I'm sure that there will be some who will come to defend this movie, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying that for many reasons, this movie was just not for me. There's just stuff that just feels like it is aged like milk in the Orlando sun. I was just sitting there thinking to myself, why must why must this be a thing? Like, why must there be an insistence on plot lines like this? But what was the proper follow-up to that creepiness? A movie about a man who kidnaps his neighbor's dog in order to sleep with her. It's Lost and Found.
How hilarious. How highly, highly humorous.
And did.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
You didn't. There's nothing.
I'll go make the bed. Lost and Found.
Lost and Found was directed by Jeff Pollock, and it starred David Spade and Sophie Marceau, and it tells the story of a man played by David Spade who runs a restaurant and lives next door to a very beautiful woman, and seeing no other option, kidnaps her dog as a way to break the ice and introduce himself to her, and romance ensues somehow. Really, when it comes to a movie like this, your tolerance of David Spade is really going to carry the load for you when it comes to your enjoyment of this movie. I think David Spade is not particularly great, and he was the bane of my existence for the full 90 minutes of this movie. Oh my God. Like, his delivery, his sort of laid back sort of delivery when he kidnaps a dog in order to get like introduce himself to this woman, it rubbed me all the wrong way. And he also abuses the dog too. Like, full disclosure, I'm not a dog person, I'm a cat person. But even I know that you can't do stuff to a dog like that. Like, just casually throws the dog in the back seat of his car, just like flings the thing. I'm just sitting there like, this is a movie, right? But at the same time, you can't do something like that to a dog. I don't even like dogs per se, and I know that you can't do that. He runs a restaurant poorly. I was honestly expecting Gordon Ramsay to bust through the door and call this man a donut, a donkey, and or a pillock. And there was not a moment in this movie where I laughed. Not once. This movie's horrid. Honestly, like, this is a concept that just fell dead on arrival. Let's just move on to something else. What do I got left? What? Pushing 10? Yeah, Pushing 10.
John Cusack, Billy Bob Thornton, Kate Blanchett, Angelina Jolie.
Are there people who find you charming?
Well, they pretend because I try so hard.
Pushing 10. Rated.
Wait. Pushing 10 was directed by Mike Newell, the man who had previously directed Four Weddings and a Funeral, and would go on to direct Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Yes, really. And the movie starred John Cusack, Billy Bob Thornton, Angelina Jolie, and Kate Blanchett. No, really, Kate Blanchett is in this movie. Here is a photo. It tells the story of an air traffic controller played by John Cusack who is very good at his job. Another air traffic controller gets hired on, and basically it's a big ol' contest between the two where they try to see who the better man is. By that plot synopsis alone, you probably have a guess as to what this movie is about. If you all would like to know how unremarkable this movie is, I literally wrote notes on my phone for like talking about this for this video, and I still have to like look down and be like, wait, what happened? Like there's a scene where like, hang on. Oh yeah, John Cusack and his buddy in the car get buzzed by Billy Bob Thornton on a motorcycle. They find the motorcycle, they being Cusack and the friend, and they pour coffee on top of it. Like a car wash could like just clean that off. That's not the flex you think it is. There's also a scene where John Carroll Lynch is like trying to get into the air traffic control center, and he's like really afraid of it, and just what I have no idea why that was supposed to be funny. I just look at something like that and I just go, you got John Cusack, you got Billy Bob Thornton, who won an Oscar for Sling Blade. You got Kate Blanchett, who 2 years from now will be the Lady Galadriel in The Lord of the Rings, and would be one of those actresses where you put her in anything, she automatically makes the movie better. And then you got Angelina Jolie, who would go on to do much better things after this, both acting and directing. This felt like a contract picture where they were on the hook, they being like Cusack, Thornton, Jolie, and Blanchett. Like they were on the hook to do this one, and they just like this felt like a very low energy movie. This is very forgettable. It's competent. You can watch it, but you're not going to remember much about it. This movie's 2 hours. It felt like at least two and a half. But let's close things out for this week by talking about a movie that tried to put Sean Connery and Angelina Jolie together in a movie and say, hey, come and see this. I mean, it worked. The movie was a box office success. But once that box office success ended, you're left with just kind of nothing, really. It's Entrapment.
I promise you, you'll have it all.
This is big enough now. It's never big enough.
Entrapment was directed by John Emile and it starred Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones. It tells the story of a private investigator, played by Jones, who is trying to find a very expensive Rembrandt painting after it was stolen. She enlists the help of a professional thief, played by Connery, and the two try and find the painting and a mask that is worth somewhere in the nine figures, all while taking place on New Year's Eve, 1999. This is a movie that I had always heard about, but had never seen. Like it was like when someone said Entrapment, it'd be like, oh yeah, that one weird Sean Connery movie. But I had never seen it up until this point. It honestly baffles my mind that this movie made, and let me pull up the figure just so I'm telling the truth here, $212 million. How? Because talk about a spy movie slash a heist movie that is thoroughly unremarkable. And that is what this movie is. You're never going to catch me hating on Sean Connery, rest in peace. But it just, he and Catherine Zeta-Jones just don't really have good chemistry with each other. And really, what it boils down to is you got to have the chemistry right between the two leads. And it just wasn't really there. They don't really do anything that's particularly special. The car chases are just there, really. They don't do anything like cool, like Mission Impossible style, unless you count one scene with lasers, but outside of that, they just kind of talk to each other. That's it. Ving Rhames is on scene for a handful of scenes, and all he does for some of them is just have a moan about how Sean Connery's character, like, hurt his Jaguar. Like, I was more interested in Ving Rhames talking about how his car had, like, a six, like supercharged and had a 6 CD changer. I'm like, the 90s where that was novel. But that was it, really. Like a studio exec had a dartboard to be like, what's a random actor pairing? Sean Connery, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Call their agents. That was about it. This movie's very forgettable. Not terrible per se, but just yeah, like I had strangely heard a lot about this movie, and now having seen it, just like, eh. Well, what did you think of any of the movies I've talked about? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And stay tuned for next week, where it's only one movie I'm covering, but man, what a movie and what a breath of fresh air it was. I'm going to be joined by Jacob Collins from 3D Movie Cinema and Austin Pez Howell from the Movie Hero Network. We're going to be talking about a little joint called, and I don't know if you can see the VHS back there, but 1999's The Mummy.